So my name is Serge Rusagara Sakumi. I was born and raised in Rwanda. Born on parents who were in business. My father, Sakumi Anselm, was a businessman. And my mom also was her business partner. So growing up in a business environment was my childhood. Even if my dad was in business, but I didn't have a chance to keep him for a long time because he was killed in genocide. Genocide of the Tutsi in 1994 on the 8th of April, together with my mom. Sometimes the Kinyarwanda means well, let's go kundanye barajyana. So my mom and my dad died on the same day, different hours, but they died on the same day. I was born in Nyamirambo, and in a clinic, the clinic opposite Kankigari. It was called clinic at that time. I think it's still called clinic, but it was known. Abana bavukiye muri clinic, so it was those days. So we lived in Nyamirambo until the genocide. My father was in different businesses, but he started his business as a retailer. So his business grew up to become, he was import and export. By the time between the 88 to 94, so his business have grown to where he has become now a factory owner. So we were manufacturing bicycles before genocide. In our days, maybe people who opens a business here, he becomes a retailer and also an exporter at the same time. But before it was like phases. So you need to be on a certain level. When you move to that level, so for example, if you're an importer and exporter, you don't do retail. So you only do in French, I think they call it grossiste. So you don't sell, you don't do small business, you only do big business. It was tough. It was tough for him, and very much for him being a Tutsi doing business at that time. It was very, really tough. It was in one of the examples that I heard that when I was young, it was tough, but let me go back a bit. He was someone who was committed. He's like, if he had to do something, he had to do it with all the issues that he would face it. But he was like, in one of the character that I heard from my dad, and even when I see what he accomplished in his whole life, he was like an easy giving away person, and that's that helped him in his life, and to a level where maybe if we go in his last days before genocide, that's also show you what character that he had. So in the 82, so he had the dream of coming up with a factory of making tires. In that day, you couldn't have an idea. No, you couldn't just go, for example, I'll try to make an example. You go in LDB, you get a certificate, you have funds, and you start to open up a factory. It was not happening like that. You are supposed to write a proposal of the whole, the business plan and everything. You submit it to equivalent of Minicom. I think that this was Minicom at that time also. And then they approve it for you to do the factory. Now, I'm bringing back the story because that's one of the things that was for them, they couldn't even be able to do. Because back then, because it was on Tutsi, they looked at the project and said, no, you can't do this. And they stole that project to give it to someone else. And yet he didn't even manage to do it. And they refused him to do that project. But he didn't give up. So he carried on with the business he had. So he ended up becoming one of the few importers of bicycles and machine à coudre, the singeri, the people who are into made in Rwanda. They know much the brand, and also some. So he was doing a lot of imports. So in 1986, they sent him a letter telling him that he can't do that project. But he didn't give up. That's when he came up with the factory, the idea of now making bicycles in Rwanda. So he put the project on, and then the project went in. So we started manufacturing bicycles, and the factory came up from 88. So it started really operating in 90. So we had the first bicycles who came out right before 1990 in October. So before the war starts. So we had already samples of the bicycles well on the market. And the name of the bicycles, our bicycles were called Maguru, as legs. So I don't know why he came up with that name of naming his brand Maguru, but that was the name of our brand. So now the resilience that he had of keep pushing, he faced a lot of challenges. Doing business for him, it was a way of survival because he couldn't get a job. He went to school, but he was chased out of school because of being a Tutsi. So he had to look for jobs to make a living. So he pushed hard in business to get to the level of having a factory before genocide, but it was not easy at all. I wish I had him after genocide, with the innovation that he had, with the way of looking at big things. So he could fit in this generation of business people, where people think big and get to a certain level. But growing up as his son, so you could see whatever he was telling you, it was not like start something small. It was like think. So there's always a say I have every time someone tells me that something is not possible. I say, are you sure that you used your brain? Because that's something that was coming in his mind all the time. Because all the time, like when we were growing up, I was telling us like, you need to use your brain to bypass all what we are, what is surrounding us. We didn't have the chance of like he tells us this is bad, this person is bad, this person is bad, but in his face he could tell you study hard. Life is not easy. But after 1990, in October, when the war started, they put them in prison. So my dad and my mom was in prison. My dad was in prison for a long time, but my mom was just there for a few days. In 1990, every Tutsi who were in business or who had any important responsibility, they put them to jail. From business people to all the people who are working in government. So after 1990, it's like when things started changing. Because we were no longer kids. At that time, I was 10 years old. All the time when we went back to school, the kids that were studying together, they start calling us names. Inyenzi, Abana b'Inyenzi, blah, blah, blah. So from day one, we knew that, even if parents were not really educating about tribes and everything, but they were telling us to be humble, to try our best to do whatever is needed to succeed in life. So after 1990, it's when we start realizing that there is something that we never really focused on, but which is really tough in our life. And mentioning about going to primary since P1. So there's something called, I remember that the Ifishe that every time when I asked that, so they had to call your name, and then they ask you and your parents. So it's like they're reading everything. And then they say, okay, abatutsi muhaguruke, bakaguhaguruka bakicara, ahutu nimuhaguruke. So when it comes back to my mind, it's like immediately I face that thing of telling us stand up, and then it's a way of like telling us, guys. And all the time we're always very few in classes, especially for where I went to to primary school because I went to a primary school which was a bit advanced a bit because it was a private school. So that thing was also demotivating you a bit of reminding you that you are not part of us. In 1990, I came back a bit forward. I went back forward because just mentioning that because those are the things that we were going back home and ask our parents. But say, Dad, this friend of mine, blah, 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 he started in a different personnel, which I am not. And after 1990, it's when we start realizing and we start asking real questions. And then the parents who could try to tell us, not really going, telling you to hate or whatever, but trying to educate you about what is happening and why you should really focus more on respecting what is happening, but at trying to understand it. Now, because I'm a parent, you look for words to tell it to the kids, but also trying to not to be that, not to go back and tell the kids, oh, even if they say this, you tell them this. So after 1990, things started becoming now even harder. His siblings, young brother, were also in business here, so they fled the country, and then all their things were sold. So the government took everything, so they did an auction, just noting that they were Inyenzi or whatever. So it was like a way of killing people softly, mentally, and everything. Well, so we stayed here pushing until 1994, where he was killed. The April 7th now found at home in Nyamirambo. We didn't have to leave the house because people started killing, but it was not yet get to my place. And yet, when I mentioned that the people were targeted already, so my dad was on the list, and if I'm not mistaken, was on number 33 of the people who had to have to be killed. 7th, he survived, but on the 8th, he didn't make it. Around 3. So it's when the troop came to our house. It was a mix of soldiers and Interahamwe, but mostly soldiers, because for the soldiers they came for a purpose. They say, who is this? For them, they were even asking, who is Sakumi? I say, okay, I am, okay. They took out my dad, shot him where most of us were outside, and then we started running left and right. And so my mom went on her side, for us went on our side. So the side where my mom went, so they also followed her and killed her. And thanks God, all our siblings, and when I say we are 5 siblings, in reality we are more than that. Living in the same house, brother and sister since we were kids. So we were in a number of 9, but those are 9 kids who are, those are my parents, those are Sakumi's kids. So we managed to run around and survived. Each of us, and the way we survived on its own, and at the end we ended up meeting. And around May, so between April and May, so we were just hiding in Nyamirambo, next to in our neighborhood. So we were hiding left and right. And in mid-May, so we managed to escape to go to Mirkolin. And that's how we survived. The people who survived in my family during that period, it's only kids. The rest of people, my mom, my dad, My cousin was one of the was elder, was 20 years plus. She was also killed. My uncle was my dad's young brother was also killed. Yeah, so it was, we are left like in kids environment where, you know, I'm the old boy. I say, you know what, I manage this. So you start talking to where you're hiding and say, can you help us to get us to this person? There's one of our neighbor who said, you know what, instead of Sakumi kids being left and right, let me pull all them together. They stay in my house. He was a Tutsi, but he said, if we have to die, we'll die together, instead of them running in the street. Because he's the first person who was killed in our neighborhood. On the 8th, he was the only person who was killed in our neighborhood. After a few days, so he decided to contact other families who are neighboring, say, you know what, I have 9 kids here. Can you help me to take either 2, 1, whatever, so to dispatch them into your houses. So what happened is, like, I could be in one family, my brother is in another family, my sister is in another family, and we were not really like being together. And then, so sometime when I am jumping, trying to hide, I find that where I'm running to, they also want to kill them. End of April, so they were not killing people in the street, so they will come and take you and put you on the first commune, and then they kill you there and then push you in the first commune. So like 5 times, I was selected to get there, but God protected me. Things happened, and you ask yourself, like, what just happened? I remember, like, that happens like twice. We were like, you know, they were putting us down. You're lying down, and then the one time they say, okay, we are not going to use our bullets. They are expensive for you people. So they called someone who had a machete, so to come and finish us. Lucky enough, the guy who had the machete, he came, I don't know, he came in slowly or whatever. By the time he got there, in one of our neighbors, they were stealing their goods. And then because of the noise, hey, this person, they're stealing in this place at, so everyone said, hey, guys, let's go, we'll come back for these people. That day we survived. We were so released in a way of like, man, we are not dying anymore. And so life continues, time to go back to school. And time to go back to school became a bit also complicated. How? You know, your parents used to take you to school. Now it's my uncle who's taking me to school. And he have done everything, like, he's my dad. He done everything, but you know, inside you, so you go back to school, you meet people, same age, but who still have parents, who are calling their parents papa, mama. And then it's when you realize about, come on, you know me, my life have made me different. I don't have the right to say these words anymore. And fast forward, lucky enough, God helped us to move on with that. We went to school. All my siblings went back to school. Before I got to university, I went to Etomuima, and then after that, I went to do my university in South Africa. So I went to South Africa in 2000 to 2004. And then when I finished, I always had that thing of, you know, I have to do something for my country. So I had the chance of going further, like to go far, like America, Canada. I said, I need to be somewhere near where anytime I could be back home. And I think that's something that I had in me to say, you know what, the way I grew up, I saw that my dad wanted to do more for his country, which didn't give him a chance to do so. So I had that feeling of like, you know, I need to come back home. So after my university in South Africa, so I immediately came back home. So I started I started working. My first job was in Kigali City. That was in 2005. And so I'm an IT by background. So I'm a network specialist. So that's my background. So in school I did networks, IT, but focusing in networking. So I'm a network admin. So my purpose was like when I joined them, because I was like, how do we interconnect all these districts and everything? It's when we had this new, they were doing in urbanization, trying to put everything into IT. We're working a lot with the company called GeoMaps, which they were putting on all the maps. So my role was like, how do you interconnect all the districts and everything? And but when I went back to look for a job, my focus was not really to stay long in employment. I had a dream of becoming a businessman, and that's what pushed me, because I had to go to. So I started in MVK, and then I went to now Liquid, but before it was called Rwanda. So I worked for Rwanda for 4 years, and then in 2009 I decided to go on my own, to start my venture now into IT. Build a career in business. So we started in focusing much on what I knew, which was network solutions. So we made it so the company grew into IT and security, whereby we also started putting in now services for security, cameras, access controls, and whatever. So my business journey now started fully, let me say, end of 2009 to 2010. Those were my like years. It's even the time that I decided to get married, or got married in 2010. Now a happy father of 3 kids. One of my push motto was, every time when things were becoming so tough on me, I could go back to places where I know that my life could end. And I say, by the way, if I left this place and I'm still alive, then who am I to give up now? I always had in mind that the way my dad was hardworking and wanted all the time, everything that I was achieving was like, or even when I was looking at positive things that which are happening to this country, I say, even if you can't leave it, we leave it for you. Even if there's something you didn't appreciate, we'll try our best to do it for you. So those are some of the push mottos that I had in me to make me pushing. When we went to school, I didn't go to school to go study how to manufacture bicycles again. So I went to university in 2000, and what is booming was IT. And we are few people who are doing IT. Back in the days when we came back in 2004, was like few few engineers that we had who had done IT. But I took that chance to make it. By the way, if this is not what I cannot go back to do exactly what my dad was doing. Say, let me focus on myself. But he have to come back. In 2008, I had a chance of joining the federation, the cycling federation, which I didn't mention it, but which my dad was a vice president of the Cycling Federation before genocide. So he was also a sportsman. Apart from being a businessman, he was also a sportsman. So he was a vice president of the Cycling Federation before genocide. So one of the good moments that we had with him, it was during the Tour de Rwanda, which happened before genocide, in 88, 89, and 90. So we had 3 Tour de Rwanda before genocide. So those moments were very precious for me and my siblings, especially the boys, my young brothers, because we were moving around with him in the whole country. So when I joined the federation, my role was like, listen, I can bring up something on table, and which is, how do we make this thing more bigger? Because I have been here, I love it. I'm just coming in because I have an expertise in it. Moving to South Africa, I've been into different sports. I used to be a motorsport driver, so I used to be a lorry driver. So I was exposed in a lot of, when it comes to organizing events and everything, and say, I can bring something on table. That's why. So the committee at that time told me, yeah, you're more than welcome. So come, so help us to build this. So since that time, so I was into cycling family. So I went back in some cycling family. So since 2009, I started being on the board of organizing the Tour de Rwanda. So all the time that we're organizing, I was like, you know what, we need to have our own event. So in 2019, I came back with the tournament, which can be named after his name, which is called the Legacy Sakumi Asylum Race. So we had our first edition in 2019, and we had our second edition last year. Due to COVID, we had to stop the other sessions. So we had our second edition in 2023, yeah. And now that was doing it. It's have many components behind it. It's like, how do you support? How do you give back to the community? Now, after being a professional in what I do, it's like, how do you give back to community? So you give back to community, especially continuing what someone had started, and he had a passionate about it. He had a vision of helping young Rwandans to become the best cyclists that they could be. He had that vision of like, how do you bring an event which will show your country, even if that time he didn't have a country, but in what he could, he gave a support in his support in that. And doing that, we saw different approach of people who told us, that's what happens with this life, that we didn't have a chance to have our parents tell us all these stories. So the more you do something, the more you get someone who comes back and say, by the way, I didn't meet you before, but this is another story I have with your parents. Mm-hmm. So we end up finding people that he was helping, paying scholarships or supporting them becoming cyclists in that time, or even helping their family to get their post jobs and everything, because he didn't use the position that he had for himself alone. No, he had a chance to use at least what he could do at that time and do it right. Every young person should learn, love your country and protect your country. Protecting your country is not only soldiers. We all have to protect our country. Number two, it's like, be consistent. Be good in what you are at.